This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Your war room for insider news and draft analysis from deep within the confines of Cowboys headquarters at the Star in Frisco.
The Dallas Cowboys select T.D. Lamb, wide receiver.
Oh, they took him!
Now, your host, Kyle Yeomans.
Welcome into a mix and match edition of the Draft Show. It'll be like this for the next couple of weeks, but it is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show, and we are just 30 days away from the NFL Draft, and we've got ourselves a good one on tap for the next hour as Brian Broaddus, Jeff Cavanaugh, Dane Brugler, and myself, Kyle Yeomans, joining you for this Tuesday edition. Then we've got Bucky, KT, and Dave Hellman on Thursday. Derek Eagleton working his magic once again, mixing and matching the host and finding a way to bring you guys the best draft coverage that we could potentially find. But this is one that I've been really excited about because, one, we get Dane Brugler back with Brian Broaddus, which I think is something that's gold in its own right. But also, Jeff and Brian have 5 hours a day of radio together, and this is an hour of off the rails, no holding back, and basically going at each other. And I think that's what's going to be really exciting about this, Mr. Brian Broaddus.
Yeah, it is. These cats don't want the smoke I'm about to bring to them. So, this should be a lot of fun. And I'll say this, Kyle. Two guys that if I was ever to get back into the scouting world and get to run a team, these are two of the guys I would hire first. And I mean that with all sincerity. I've enjoyed working with them the last 7-8 years. And anytime that I could sit down with them and argue about these players or agree about players or paint a picture about these players, it's time very well spent for me. So I am looking forward to this day very much.
Dane, he's going to bring the smoke.
I'll get you coffee for you, Mr. Broaddus. Yeah, I mean, like Brian does the work, so I enjoy listening to the opinions of everybody that does the work, and Brian does more work than most out there. So I always enjoy the discussions. Jeff, yeah, he puts in the work too. So this is going to be.
He hates offensive linemen. He hates offensive linemen, Dane. So we could talk about.
I have watched 10 offensive linemen, okay?
Hey, that's pretty good.
I hate them, and I don't want to watch them, but I have seen 10 of them, okay? And some of them
he's seen every receiver in the draft, so just let it be known that if his opinion's coming on these receivers, he's got that covered for you right there.
Most years, I watch 100 receivers and 6 other prospects total, but this year the Cowboys have 10 receivers, so offense is where I've been slacking. I'm only up to
the trade action we saw over the
10
weekend.
Receivers. But we are moving now. I got to tell you, we're moving now.
And we thought it was going to happen, maybe not a month before the draft, but the 49ers moving up to number 3. This is going to be interesting, and not only what's going to happen at 3, but the ramifications now. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then what happens at 10. This is going to get really interesting. And it starts at 3. Which quarterback did the 49ers go up to get? Obviously, they're coming up for a quarterback. Trevor Lawrence is going 1. Zach Wilson's going 2. Who's going 3, Mr. Broaddus?
Yeah, San Francisco is going to go ahead and trade all the way up to 2 to make sure that they get Zach Wilson out of this thing is what they're doing. They're just putting themselves in shape to be able to flop those picks. Robert Saleh being the head coach now with the Jets. Trust me, they know what's going on in San Francisco right now. So, I'm not buying the smoke. I'm not buying that. I'm talking about smoke again. I want to believe that this is where I always tell people, like, it's ice cream. These quarterbacks are like ice cream. It's your flavor, whatever you believe. And Kyle Shanahan, he doesn't care what the draft show thinks about these quarterbacks. He doesn't care about our opinion. He'll go out and get the guy he wants. I'm perfectly fine with that. But to give up what he did to take a quarterback that's not as talented as some of the guys that he could potentially pick, I don't know, man. That is going way, way, way out on a limb right there. And you know what? If he takes Mac Jones and he works out well, it'll be one more of those times where I could say, you know what, I was wrong about a guy. But I don't know how San Francisco could take Mac Jones, give all they did, go up there and take him when you got guys like Lance and then you got potentially Fields on the board to take. I just don't see this happening, and I'm not buying it one bit.
What is the big... Go for it, Dane.
Oh, I agree with you in theory, because to me, there's Lawrence is the best quarterback in this class. Then I have Zach Wilson, and then I've got Lance and Fields closely together, and then Mac Jones at 5. So I agree with you that would make the most sense. When this trade first came down, my initial reaction was, oh, Trey Lance, this is perfect. I love the landing spot, love the match there. Let's roll. But I'm not saying that I think Mac Jones should be the pick. I'm saying that you talk to people around the league, and that's what they're talking about. And this isn't a case of a case of like, oh, smokescreen and like, we've got guys with the Cleveland Browns or the Seattle Seahawks telling us something, the smokescreen for the 49ers. No, that's not what's going on. People in the NFL genuinely believe that this is going to be Mac Jones. A high percentage of people believe this is going to be Mac Jones. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be, but it's not a media creation. It's not the 49ers putting it out there that it's going to be Mac. This is what a lot of people around the NFL believe will happen. And so when you look at it, they sitting there at 12, you have to worry about Carolina at 8. And instead of trying to move up to 6 or 5 or 4, it's just say, you know what, let's go up to 3, eliminate all doubt, and go and get our guy. And so it is a very, very likely scenario where Mac Jones is the 3rd pick this year.
Yeah, and again, if that's the route that San Francisco wants to go, that's their evaluation. But you think about what and maybe these general managers, and let me get this out there. John Lynch is not the general manager in San Francisco. He is entitled.
Title only.
Title only. Kyle Shanahan is the general manager of that organization. Whatever players that he wants, he's going to get, and he's going to move around. He's a good evaluator. The guy has a good roster. But for them to give up what they did for this, no. Philadelphia just proved to you that their pick is for sale at 6. They got out of there. They got out of there in a heartbeat. They're the ones that I think are going to lose in this whole thing because they were in that mode where they could have taken great skill players there. Wide receiver, the tight end. Now they're moving back just so they could pick up an extra first-round pick. That's a team that's talent poor right now in a lot of areas. So I just don't see these teams. Again, if you're going up there to get ahead of Carolina, you could have probably done that at 6 and got right up there and not had to give up what you did if Mac Jones is your guy. You can't convince me that everybody else in the league ahead of you is going to take him over the guys like yourself, Dane, who are evaluating saying, oh, well, I've got Fields and I've got Lance. I guarantee you 85% of the boards are going to have it that way too.
Sure, yeah, no, I agree. But what about if you move up to 6, then you're worried about Carolina at 8 jumping you for Mac Jones. Mm-hmm. It's, you said it at the top, ice cream flavors, and while I agree, we're in agreement here on the way the quarterbacks would come off the board if we were picking, but we're not picking. And so there is a realistic possibility here that Kyle Shanahan views Mac Jones and look, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Why Mac Jones should be that pick? What are the 2 most important traits you want in a quarterback? Accuracy, decision making. That's top 2. Then you have to decide if everything else is good enough. Mac Jones, you could argue, is the superior quarterback between Lance and Fields when you talk about those top 2 traits, accuracy and decision-making. Now, he's not as mobile, he doesn't have the same type of arm, and the physical traits aren't there, but the top 2 traits you look for at the position, that's where Mac Jones gets those checks over some of the other quarterbacks. So that's me playing devil's advocate saying I could understand why Kyle Shanahan would want to make that move and for Mac Jones being the guy, and why he felt like he had to go up to 3, get ahead of Carolina, eliminate all doubt. Now, if Carolina really wants Mac Jones, they've got to blow away the Jets at number 2, which is highly unlikely.
Mac Jones is not going third. Mac Jones is not going third. This is me playing my violin on my way down with the Titanic. I won't believe it until after that pick is made. There is no way Mac Jones is getting picked third. No way. None. I'm calling, not the credibility, I'm just calling everyone a liar. Whoever is telling anyone that is lying. Kyle Shanahan's a liar. John Lynch is a liar. They're a bunch of liars. Mac Jones ain't going third.
So
not happening.
My question with this is, Dane, you've heard this from all of your sources, and you've kind of put the pieces together, and we've heard it certainly throughout the media. But where is your confidence level at with this potentially being a thing, with Mac Jones potentially going third overall? Because, I mean, we'll talk about your top 100 coming up in the third show, but, I mean, Mac Jones is pretty far down that list. He's nowhere near the top 3. So is your confidence level aligning with what you've heard from sources?
My confidence level in Mac Jones being the pick, or Mac Jones should be the pick?
How about both? Give me an answer for both.
Well, I mean, Mac Jones, for me, is the 5th best quarterback in this class. Now, I really like Mac Jones. Like, I was finishing up the Beast this week, and so I'm proofreading, and I'm going through my quarterbacks, and I'm reading every single word in my Mac Jones report, and I get done with this report, and I'm like, man, I really like Mac Jones. Like, he's a really good quarterback. When you talk about what you want at the position in terms of processing, in terms of ball placement, in terms of poise, I think he's got the best deep ball. Doesn't have the strongest arm, but I think he's got the best deep ball in this class. So there's a lot for Mac Jones that I like. But with that said, I'd still take my chances with the other 4 quarterbacks before I took my chances with him. Mainly because of they're close in those other areas, but their physical traits are superior. Now, in terms of my confidence level and Mac Jones actually being the pick, I don't. It's tough. We're a month out, and we've been doing this a long time. We know that you don't necessarily listen to things you hear a month out from the draft. Mm-hmm. But, with the 49ers at 3, they don't need to smokescreen anybody. Okay? No. Like, this isn't, they don't need to fake anybody out. We know, we feel really, really good, like 99% sure that Trevor Lawrence is going 1. And we're about 85% sure Zach Wilson's going 2. Okay? Really, really sure about those first 2 picks. 49ers now, they start the draft at number 3. Who are they going to draft? I don't know, but they don't need to say, they don't need to smokescreen anybody in terms of trying to faking anybody out. That's just that they don't need to. So the fact that so many people that I talk to around the league believe it's Mac Jones tells me that there's at least something there. The fact that Kyle Shanahan is in Alabama this morning, watching Mac Jones, that's not irrelevant. That there is something to that. Kyle Shanahan does not go to many pro days. Didn't go to Trey Lance's. He does not go to many pro days. The fact that he is in Tuscaloosa right now, that means something. Even if it doesn't, even if we can't say for sure he's going to be the pick, that at least means something.
Brian?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I trust. I'm on the side of I don't believe it's going to be the pick. I'm like Jeff. I'll go down with the ship. I think that San Francisco is trying to be more clever than everybody else. I really do. I think they're trying to divert our attention. This stuff is too clean. I mean, when it comes to quarterbacks, we generally don't hear who people like. We don't. And now all of a sudden we all know that San Francisco's in love with Mac Jones? No, that's not going to work in my book. In draft rooms, that's the one position you protect. You protect the quarterback list, but you try and protect all your picks too. But in this case, the fact that everybody now has got Mac Jones going there, and the hard thing about it is the people who study the tape really don't believe it. Because you watch the other players and you're saying, how could you not take the more talented players? That goes against everything you believe. Now, this is a position that people look at it different. Kyle Shanahan's idea could be completely different from everyone else's idea of what a quarterback takes. Dane, you brought it up. Accuracy. That's important. Talk about the deep ball stuff. That's important. I just think that, to me, the fact that we know who the San Francisco 49ers are going to pick at quarterback is hard to believe, especially at this point in time.
3 years ago, a month before the draft, if I would have told you Baker Mayfield is going to be the top pick to the Browns, we'd be saying the same thing. We weren't talking about Baker Mayfield as even a thought at number 1 until 24 hours before the draft.
That's right. And what happened is, and your sources and my sources of John Dorsey said he was looking for a quarterback that when everybody went into that locker room, they would look at and say, that's a leader. That's our guy. That's who we want to play for. Okay? Maybe that's exactly. But again, you protect your quarterback list with your life. You protect, unless you're the Dallas Cowboys, you try and protect your board too, and that way the board gets out of it.
Sometimes
gets out of there every once in a while. But to me, this is where, and again, a lot of smart people, a lot of really plugged-in people. I just don't. It's too. If we found this out the night before the draft, I dig it. Right now, nope, not at all.
You think it's just too in front, too out there in the open,
too in front,
and that's exactly what teams don't want to do.
Absolutely, you do not want to telegraph if in fact if teams are sitting in their room right now and you're Carolina, maybe you do try and blow the Jets away. Maybe you say, you know what? Hey, if you guys will drop down here to 8, we'll give you this. We'll make a deal better than what San Francisco gave you. But they might pick Wilson. Still, they might get the guy that they want. But to me, this happened way too early in the process for me to really believe in it.
So let me ask you this now. We'll get away from that number 3 pick. Do you foresee any more trades happening between now and because I think we're going to see some trades? We look at Carolina.
Watch Denver.
Right. Well, yeah.
Dallas,
Carolina at 8, Denver at 9. You have the Patriots at 15. But my question is, do you think we're going to see some of those trades between now and the draft, or do you think this is going to be we're going to wait and see who goes 3, and then that's when we're going to see some trade action go on?
I think you're going to have some people that are going to set some stuff up. That they're going to have some listen, if we go on the clock and our guy's not there, you're going to have some pre-trade discussions with some teams. If I'm the Dallas Cowboys, every mock draft, Jeff and I, as we do our radio show every day, Jeff and I do like a big board report. We go through the mocks. Jeff tells me how many offensive players are taken in those mocks before defensive players taken. Every single time it's 9 offensive players. Every single time it appears that way. Nobody's putting Parsons up there anymore. Nobody's putting Farley up there anymore. Nobody's putting those guys up there anymore. It's all these offensive players. And if you're somebody that thinks you want to get the best, now that Farley's got that injury, if you're a team that wants the best corner and you think Surtain is the best corner, go trade with Denver. Because there's a chance at Dallas he's 10. Dane, I saw your top 100. Or your top 10, you got Surtain at number 10. I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. He's your first defensive player, isn't he?
Yep.
On the board?
Yeah, he is.
Okay,
Yep.
There you go. Denver.
J.C. Horn's not too far behind.
Do you think there's an opportunity that
Denver.
even Denver could trade up to go get a guy? Maybe if they wanted that 4th quarterback off the board, they go up and try and maybe trade with Atlanta?
Yes. You do not dismiss Denver as a possibility to go get one of these quarterbacks. I'm telling you.
Especially if a bad quarterback goes 3rd overall, you really want to go get one of the good ones.
Get one of the good ones.
That's it. If you're Denver, you move up 2 spots, get ahead of Carolina, get your Trey Lance, get your Justin Fields. Who knows? The thing is we have a new general manager in Denver.
You think Cincinnati at 5 would really trade with you? You think Cincinnati at 5 would trade?
No, because they're going to be staring down the barrel of either Kyle Pitts or Penei Sewell.
One less,
or Jamar
Chase. One less pick. What do you think Miami?
I said at 7. Look, if Denver wanted to move up, Denver could move up to 4 at Atlanta. We don't. Sure. Atlanta's a wild card. They could take a quarterback. They might not take a quarterback. But if Denver wants to get Trey Lance, they move up to number 4 and get your guy. And then you're left with Carolina. Are they just going to stand pat and see if Fields falls to them? I don't know.
I think that if you're Denver, if John Elway was still the general manager at Denver, I'd buy what you're saying. But George Payton, no.
Yeah, we've never seen Payton as a. But we've never seen him as a general manager before.
Give me picks. That's what
we've never seen him as a general manager. We don't have a sample size of him making the picks to know, exactly what his philosophy is going to be. If he feels like there's a quarterback that's a clear upgrade over Drew Lock and is going to take this organization in the right direction, Denver's not too far off. They made a lot of smart moves on defense this offseason. So I'm just saying, Denver's intriguing. I'm not saying they're going to get a quarterback, but I would not dismiss them as an option there. Real quick before we move on, what Miami moving to 12 and then up to 6? What do we think Miami does at 6 and Philly does at 12?
I would like to start with, I don't think that trade makes sense for Miami. The second part of it, because you went down, which that's fine, and you accumulated a bunch of picks, but you came back up without totally knowing what's going to be available, unless you're just like, that's what I don't understand is unless Miami feels really, really good about 2 or 3 different pass catchers, then because that plan otherwise, because at 12 there's a chance you miss out on all of them. So in that way it makes sense, but it's kind of strange to watch a team go from 12 to 6 and they can't know for sure who they're picking, because they can't know for sure that Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts or Jalen Waddle, yes, at least one and probably all but one will be there. Yeah. So I guess you just have to be in love with multiple players there.
Yeah. So they just they took over Philadelphia's spot. When we start talking about Philadelphia, what do we always talk about? Skill guys.
Yep.
We name every wide receiver available. We talk about Pitts. They're going to get a badass offensive player at 6 if they want one. They just took Philadelphia's spot. Philadelphia says, we don't need any offensive players. We're going back. Miami's trade netted them a 1 and a 3, an extra 1 and a 3. I think Chris Greer did a hell of a job. He's now just taken over. Everything that we talked about in Philadelphia, skill-wise, now is in play at Miami.
And I kind of like what the Eagles did. They get an extra pick next year, plus they might get Devontae Smith at 12.
Sure.
They might get J.C. Horn at 12. Micah Parsons could be there, even though they don't draft linebackers in the first round. So the Eagles pick up a first next year, so they can probably going to target a quarterback in next year's draft, and they're still going to get a pretty good player at 12. So I like it for both sides.
I think it is good for both sides as well. But, Jeff, you even mentioned it earlier when you were talking about Cincinnati, saying that they're staring down the barrel of either Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, any of those pass catchers. One of those guys is going to be there at 6 for Miami. So I understand that, and kind of you guys went over that, and I don't want to repeat exactly what you said, but I think the going back up and the way that they did it, and Brian, you said netting those extra picks, I think Miami's playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers. I think that was a fantastic move. I think it was a good move for the Eagles because they get their choice of one of those Alabama guys maybe if they fall. And even, hey, who knows? Kyle Pitts could fall that far as well. Dave Hellman in our mock draft in the Star magazine had Kyle Pitts all the way down to 13. It's possible. I'm not saying that's gospel by any means, but it is possible to see players like that and talented players like that fall. Now, we're going to go ahead and step aside. When we come back, Twitter on the 20 time. It's one of the favorite segments. We're going to get to as many questions as we potentially can. I've got at least 6 of them I'm looking at right now, and we're going to talk about it on the other side of the break. You're listening to the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Sometimes nothing beats a classic. Miller Lite, the original light beer, brewed with great taste and only 96 calories. Available for delivery. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
We're back with a tasty treat that's sweeping airwaves and taste buds. It's new Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda. Let's take a listen.
Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda's here. A new combo that's music to my ears, okay. Let's play. Cream Soda and Dr. Pepper time. Pour it in a glass of ice.
Music to my ears and mouth. New Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda.
A delicious duet.
Hey, Cowboys fans, if you're thinking about attending a game this season, visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today. Stay at the team hotel, have dinner with a Cowboys legend, and experience AT&T Stadium's exclusive VIP Owners Club. Also, tour the Star, get autographs from your favorite players, and talk X's and O's with me, Mickey Spagnola. The official travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys will take care of all your travel needs. Visit cowboystravel.com.
There's nothing as unique as our eyes, which is why Essilor pioneers ways to make lenses as unique as you. Varilux for super sharp vision, Essential Blue for protection, and Crizal for freedom from glare. 3 cutting-edge solutions in a single unique lens. So whatever your needs, insist on Essilor. Visit your local Essilor experts and find the perfect lens for you. See more, do more, Essilor.
Sometimes nothing beats a classic. Miller Lite, the original light beer, brewed with great taste and only 96 calories. Available for delivery. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Into our second segment here of the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show, as always presented by Miller Lite. Before we get into Twitter on the 20, I've got something in my hands I'm looking at right now. It's that beautiful Dallas Cowboys Star Magazine draft guide. It is fresh off the press. I mean, placed on our desk yesterday. And there's even a full-page ad for Mr. Jeff Kavanaugh and Brian Broaddus in the middle of this. Look at those pretty faces. Look at those two guys. Right in the middle, a full-page ad right next to Will McClay as well. I mean, I think it's a fantastic look for these guys. I was searching through, and I looked up, and I said, oh, look, there's Jeff Kavanaugh's smiling face. But you can get these on DallasCowboys.com. You can get a digital copy, or you can get the hard copy sent to you as well. That'll be out coming up later this week. I don't know the exact date. I tried to clarify that. It's up over the next couple of weeks, but it is fantastic. And you get a picture of Jeff Kavanaugh and Brian Broaddus. I heard if you hit them up on Twitter, they'll even sign it for you. Is that right, guys?
Yeah, digitally, NFT.
Okay.
Yeah, just check my YouTube page for all my blockchain stuff, and I'll get you squared away.
How many of those words did you just understand, Brian?
I do 5 hours. I work with 2 guys that are totally into that stuff, and I'll tell you what, it's a journey every single day. Listening to them talking about blockchains and things like that. So, hey, it's the way to go. But Krusty's got a whole nother idea in life, so he's gonna let somebody else blockchain it probably.
You're not gonna get into the Bitcoin and the blockchain and NFTs.
Probably
That's
not.
good. That's
Probably
good.
not.
Well, we're gonna get into
buy my Top Shots.
Okay, we're gonna get into TOTs. How about Twitter on the 20?
Twitter on the 20.
As always, Chris Beam in the back doing fantastic work. You like that segue using the acronym? I think that was fun. All right.
Yeah.
The Star Vision on Twitter says, favorite player comps so far in this draft class. He said he'll start first. He says Asante Samuel Jr., comparing him to Tre'Davious White. Brian Broaddus, do you have a favorite player comp in this draft?
Man, last year it was Wirfs and Walter Jones. I don't have a favorite player comp. When you go through some of these guys too, you try and say, and mine tend to be older guys, older players back in the day, and I just struggle. I'll tell you one that I think. I'm trying to figure out one for Davis, for my guy at the quarterback at Stanford, is what I'm trying to figure out one for him, because I really do like the kid. I like the way he throws the football. You could always kind of find a guy along the way that was that type of guy, but this is tough, because that's how I used to describe players to Jerry Jones, and that's how Jerry understood. If you could take a guy and make him paint a picture for Jerry, that was the great thing to do, but it was always difficult. I know when we were doing the magazines and stuff, Dane was always in charge of that guy. I guarantee you Dane's got some guys. Who do you got, Dane? Is there somebody you like better than... I didn't give you a comparison because I don't have anybody yet that this guy really reminds me of that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I try to come up with comparisons for every player, and some are not easy, and so you just don't force it. But some I thought were really made a lot of sense to me. like Trevon Merrick, Jesse Bates, the corner or the safety from the Bengals. I think that makes a lot of sense. Jamin White, the linebacker from Kentucky. Zach Cunningham from the Texans. I think those two guys are just absolute clones of each other. Hunter Long, the tight end from Boston College, very, very similar to Austin Hooper. I like that comparison quite a bit. Azeez Ojulari and Yannick Ngakoue. So, yeah, I think there's a couple comparisons that I really like in this class.
Kyle Pitts and Thanos. That's what I went with. Yeah. Kyle Pitts and Thanos. Thanos was, of course, the guy who even the Avengers couldn't take down until they combined all their different powers, because Thanos is an unstoppable. He's inevitable, if you will. That's Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts is inevitable. All right. Well, that might be the title of the title of the podcast.
You know, it's funny when you watch a bunch of these players, and again, there's certain guys that do pop. I don't try and force these things. But they're, like I say, with Tristan, with Wirfs, I mean, I just saw Walter Jones. And I know that, the athletic ability and stuff. And, it's one of those things, it has to come to you. It has to, when you're watching those players. I'll tell you what, I'll give you my one. I should have thought of this right out there. Because on the radio, I always talk about Devontae Smith as Marvin Harrison.
Ooh,
that's one of those ones that always comes to mind because of the way it's built. That was the one that's not forced. It's a natural one. When I watch him play, I think I'm watching Marvin Harrison play football.
Oh yeah, Darius Washington and Honey Badger.
You do love that one.
There you go.
I didn't know Honey Badger was a 4'6" athlete.
Oh, I didn't know we played football on a track. Here, I thought they played on the field. I didn't know. Weird.
I didn't realize that. Huh.
I mean, the next time that they ask him to line up in a 3-point stance and run 40 yards in a straight line, I guess if the guy runs a 4.4, Washington's not going to catch him. But quarterbacks ain't throwing at him. They're not scared to throw at Merrick. They ain't throwing at Washington.
I don't know about that.
Okay, well we're gonna
throw it. Just throw it. Don't get me wrong. 2 inches higher than him. Just throw it a little bit higher.
I mean, I'm waiting for somebody to do it, but they really throw at the corners, but they also throw at Merrick some. They're not throwing at Washington, not in 2020. They know better.
I like it. All right.
Kid, I'll tell you what, man, he makes up for it. Kid puts himself in some good positions to make plays. I will give him credit.
No, he's not a bad player. I don't know. You see, to me, I saw the lack of inches quite often in that on his tape, but
Dane, did he make your top 100? We're talking about our Darius Washington out of TCU, by the way.
Of course not. Dane hates little people.
No, hey, he just missed. I graded him as I've been consistent with him from the start.
You have
He's a 4th round nickel for me. A good player who has some shortcomings, but a good player.
There's the joke.
There's the joke.
Yeah, there's the joke. Yeah, there goes Dane.
How was that a joke? He has some shortcomings. How is that a joke? Look, he's a good player. I mean, he's not like he's a bad player here. It's just there's some other players I'd rather have over him.
Who's a better short player, him or Samuel?
Samuel. I think Samuel's a much better athlete. I mean, he can cover. I mean, I think you can do a little more with Samuel.
All right, I want to get to our second question here. This one, again, Brian will remember this guy, but it's from Aspiring Journalist on Twitter. That was his name on both his tag and his name. So he asked, what are your reactions to Miami's Pro Day? Of course, these Pro Days continuing on throughout the month. And did it change or confirm your opinion of Phillips, Rousseau, Roche? Dane, give us some of the numbers that we saw from Miami's Pro Day yesterday, and then we'll talk about how it affected us.
Well, actually, I'm still waiting for the official numbers to come in. Should be here this afternoon. But
I got you, Dane. Phillips really good, Rousseau bad.
Yeah, just from what we saw reported out there, it looked like Rousseau was not. It's pretty disappointing compared to what you would expect from a player who has a chance to be a top 20 pick. Now, I think Jeff and I. Brian, I don't know where you are in Rousseau, but I know Jeff and I are not. We don't see Rousseau as a top 32 player in this draft.
Day 3.
Brian, where do you see Rousseau?
Yeah, I got him in the second round. I don't see him as a first round player, but to me, that's where, again, the things that you want to like about him. That's tough. That's a tough evaluation there because, again, when you kick him inside, that's his most productive stuff. And then when you see him play outside, you're like, well, this guy's not I just couldn't get over the fact that everybody had him in the first round. I didn't see it. I didn't see it at all. And you know what? I mean, there's several of those defensive ends that I would rather have over him right now. I mean, I have problems with Kwity Paye. I have problems with the Penn State kid away. I have problems with Rousseau. I mean, I've kind of got those guys all in that same group. I'm really not fired up for any of them. They're like guys that if they get taken in the second or third round, I could understand it. But I'm not putting those guys in the first round. I just don't see the ability there.
I have Rousseau in the fourth because I don't think that he has any good traits. I think the traits that people are going to talk about is that he's tall and he has long arms. That's the end of the list. He's not an explosive athlete. He's not strong. He can't win off the edge. Gregory Rousseau is a pick that you're literally picking the traits of he's long and he had some college production as a freshman. That's what you're picking. That even in the second round, if he made it to 44 and the Cowboys picked him, I would say they made an awful pick. I'd be like, I just don't know. I don't know what you're getting out of him. He's not an edge because he can't win the corner. He's not a real D tackle. He's 260 pounds and not even athletic at 260 pounds. So I have no idea what you're doing with Gregory Rousseau. I think he's a day 3 project.
I think his length helps unlock some things that some other players, can't with the average athletic profile. Now, Jalen Phillips, he tested off the charts, which, at least unofficially. Now, that was never the question, though. I've said this before, but watching Jalen Phillips, I get flashbacks of the Bosa's, with just his understanding of how to use his hands, just their thought process, the way they move. I don't think that he's quite as explosive as the Bosa's, but he's very smooth and he plays well. It's just the question with him has always been the injury and the off-field stuff, and that's really what's going to dictate where he ends up on draft day. If Jalen Phillips could go 20, he could go 60, and I wouldn't be surprised at either.
Yeah, that's the Miami evaluation of those two kids is very, very difficult. I do have him in the first round below Ojulari from Georgia, but and I agree with you, Dane. I mean, this guy. So I'm that's why I would have Phillips. I would rather take a chance on Phillips with all the things you talked about as opposed to Rousseau that I'm not really sure what he totally brings to the table.
I'd rather have Roche than Rousseau, I think.
I like Roche a little bit more than most people do, but I still don't even know if I would do that. That's pretty right on the borderline of it. But kind of sticking with this same topic.
Yeah, I just want to get it real clear. I just want to be real clear where I am on the Rousseau topic.
You've been very consistent, and I appreciate that. But kind of sticking with this same topic with Christian on Twitter, he said, which widely assumed top 100 draft prospect is most vulnerable to a huge slip in the draft? And he wanted to say, similar to Bradley and I and/or Curtis Weaver, from last year falling to the 5th round. I mean, it happens every year. A top 100 player is going to end up falling. Dane, is there anybody that you see that is more susceptible to that than anybody else?
That's a good question. I think, first of all, when you have there's so many guys at one position, like receiver or corner, ultimately some of those guys get squeezed because only so many receivers are going to go top 100. Only so many tackles are going to go top. So one of those guys at that position could get squeezed out. Looking at my list here, we talk about a guy that Davion Nixon from Iowa. Maybe could he be a guy that slips a little bit because he's got some track record issues and he was a little heavy at his pro day, things like that. Maybe Davion Nixon. You got the injury guys like the Deo Odegbo from Vanderbilt, who I think is a top 50 player. But because of the injury, could he fall a little bit? Andre Sisco, another one of those guys, the ACL. Could that knock him out of the top 100?
I'll tell you a guy on tape, and this is from my school, Jabril Cox. I think a lot of people have Jabril Cox way too high.
Wow.
On their list. I am not.
I have a 78. Is that too high?
You know what? I think that if you dropped him a little more, I'd be more comfortable with that. I just don't see. To me, there's that flash. And again, I've watched every game he's played at LSU, and every mock draft that people send me, they pick him at 44. Every mock draft, he's at 44, 44, 44. I'm like, man, I don't see that. If he were to get selected a lot higher, then if he gets selected between 44 and 50 something, I would be surprised. I think that, Dane, you're closer to where he needs to be, and maybe a little even further down when you truly evaluate him.
I think that's just a reflection of, in college, most of these linebackers you just see doing the generic spot drops, like that's all they're asked to do. But Jabril Cox, you've got real life tape of covering tight ends and doing it with ease. Like, he's a bad run player. He's not a good run player, and he plays linebacker, so I think that's awkward for people. But coverage at that spot has become so important that I think you'll just have teams that are like, look, we can teach a guy to play the run and tackle, but this coverage is kind of rare in college. So I think he'll be in the second round. I think that's where he'll go, because it's kind of rare in college to see linebackers who can do that, or at least show that in college.
I think that's a fair point.
But you also got to be able to tackle, Jeff, and you talk about teaching it and stuff like that. And, there's been a lot of these LSU linebackers that have come in and done a pretty good job, But I'm just saying, I think people have got him too high. I'm going to give you another guy, that Xavier Collins. I really don't know what I'm going to do with Xavier Collins, the kid from Tulsa. And I know there's a lot of people that – excuse me, what did I say? Tulsa.
You said Tulsa.
You did. Yeah, I said it at the same time.
To me, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that guy looks like, to me, just a Sam outside linebacker. What else you going to do with him? I don't know. I mean, you watch some of his tape, there's some turnovers and things like that he creates, but he physically looks like a defensive end trying to play linebacker. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Use him as a pass rusher? Do you use him as a linebacker? Where do you use him? I think that people are probably going to overdraft him too.
What about Walker Little, Dane? Do you think there's a chance he could fall because of the lack of tape, because of maybe some of the injury issues and the fact that he hasn't really played real football in a couple of seasons?
It's certainly possible because of the reasons that you just stated, but I think he plays the right position, first of all. He plays tackle. Everyone's looking for tackles. And I just think at a certain point on day two, the value is going to be too great, and a team's going to say, let's roll the dice. And we've seen him play one game the last 2 years, but pro day numbers look good. His pro day workout looked good. All the videos from his training look good. This is a guy who, in the 2019 season opener against Northwestern, he looked like he was on a first-round trajectory. So, I think that I would be surprised if he falls out of the top 75 picks. I think somewhere in the top 75, a team is going to roll the dice and see what they have on Walker Little.
I was interested about him. 6'7" is pretty impressive, Brian.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, but there's, again, you talk about the size is ideal, the limited number of games he's played. People are going to bet on that look, I think, is what they're going to do. When you talk about the 6'7", the 320, I mean, that's what I had going in. But there is, like, if you watch him play, he doesn't always play in balance. I mean, he is, for a tall guy, he is way over the top of his feet a lot of the times. And then all of a sudden, he'll set, and then things will start to fall apart for him there. So I didn't see the strongest guy, too, for his size. I've been wrong about a lot of these tall, long, not strong guys. I can't compare him to Nate Soldar out of Colorado, David Bakhtiari. I mean, those guys that don't play with a lot of power. Bakhtiari, he manages to make it because he's such a great athlete. But I mean, you get these guys that don't play with power. I mean, I've been burned by the Walker Little type guys before. So, but I'm gonna bet that he's a guy that doesn't immediately come in and help somebody. I think it's probably a 2 or 3 year project with this guy.
Well, and the other factor we have to keep in mind here too is just the lack of information on the medicals. Without the combine this year, teams are getting the info a little bit later, which means we get the info a little bit later. So, there's always the possibility of 1 or 2 of these guys just get dropped because of a bad knee or their shoulder's not right, things like that. So just something to keep in mind.
I agree completely with Brian. I think a couple year of a project with him would be something ideal, and then he could have a really successful NFL career. Now, who would be successful in a street fight? This is from Devin Boyle on Twitter, our guy. Broadus' race team, Kavanaugh's flag football team, or Dane's scouting sources. Who would win in a street fight, Anchorman style, meeting in the middle of the parking lot and going at it? Who would win out of those three?
Well, it's just a numbers game. I mean, depending which flag football team. If you're talking about my 4-man team, it's like 6 guys, 7 guys. Race team's got more than that, and they probably have all sorts of wrenches and
Take the
they got helmets
guys.
on so they can protect themselves.
They got helmets, gloves, knee pads. They've got tools in hand. And you're going to, and they're all hopped up on Mountain Dew. I mean, they are all jacked up. They drink a ton of Mountain Dew. They get vibe. I mean, you go over the wall, man. It's a tough job. But Anchorman style, the fact that we have helmets and tools, I think we might have a chance with my guys. I do.
Yeah, my guys got a cell phone and a stopwatch. That's all they got. So,
and my guys are carrying around Jello shots and football cleats. It's all they got. So we're in trouble.
Oh, I love it. A little bit of Miller Lite with Jeff's
Crew's a little more athletic. Yeah, Jeff Crew's a little more athletic than my crew. So
man. But it's close now. We used to be. It's getting closer.
I think that would be fun to watch. I would gladly sit above the action and broadcast every single bit of it if I could. But let's go ahead and take our second.
Can you surrender before it starts?
Yes, if you want to.
Like I would just run up the white flag and be like, "Good fight, guys. You got it."
Have fun, everybody. All right, we're going to take our second break. When we come back, top 100 big board of Dane Brugler. We're going to talk about, where are the Cowboys going to look in the second round when they pick somebody on the offensive side of the football in the first. I'll explain that on the other side of the break.
Sometimes nothing beats a classic. Miller Lite, the original light beer, brewed with great taste and only 96 calories. Available for delivery. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
The Cowboys way, where 16 Hall of Famers and 5 championships shows us what success looks like. Where turkey is always the second best part of Thanksgiving Day. Where we are all defined by one single thing, the star. Where we as fans know it's our job to keep the tradition going. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank of the Dallas Cowboys and to support the quest of living life the Cowboys way.
Copyright 2020, Bank of America Corporation.
Honey, big news.
Gary, are you okay?
Oh, I'm not Gary anymore. I'm Jackie Flash.
What?
See, I want the latest smartphone, but the best deals are only for new customers. So, to get a new customer deal, I changed my name to Jackie Flash.
Okay, but the best smartphone deals at AT&T are for everyone, new and existing customers.
That's huge. Then guess who's getting a deal?
Is it Jackie Flash?
Jackie Flash.
It's not complicated. At AT&T, our best smartphone deals are for everyone. Restrictions apply. Visit att.com for details.
Before there was a draft, you could size up a cowboy by 3 simple factors: the crease in his hat, the bend of his brim, and his unbending attitude. A man Stetson didn't just protect him from what life threw at him, it projected a rugged, unstoppable spirit. Stetson hats are still American-made with pride right here in Texas. They're still the unofficial crown of all self-respecting cowboys, and Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Find a retailer nearest you at stetson.com/cowboys.
Sometimes nothing beats a classic. Miller Lite, the original light beer, brewed with great taste and only 96 calories. Available for delivery. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Final segment here, the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Kyle Yeomans, Brian Broaddus, Dane Brugler, Jeff Kavanaugh. Goodness gracious, I don't know what I was just
What up?
I was about to say Kevin KT Turner, Dave Hellman, and then Bucky Brooks are going to come up on Thursday, 10 a.m. Central Time for that one. But we've got Jeff for this one. This has been a whole lot of fun talking about Brian's race team absolutely beating down the scouting department and the flag football team simultaneously. But Dane's been beating down that big board, and he's gotten down to 100 at the moment. Top 100 big board released on The Athletic. Go check it out. Highly encourage it because there is a ton of information on these prospects, and you can go read it right there on The Athletic. He does a fantastic job, which is why we love having him on the draft show. But Dane, Top 9 players, all on the offensive side of the football. The first defensive player in your top 100 is Patrick Surtain, cornerback out of Alabama. He's sitting at 10. The next best defensive player, Micah Parsons at 12. So a couple positions back for that. Sandwiched in between Surtain and Parsons is Rashawn Slater, the offensive tackle from Northwestern. So explain your reasoning right around that 10 mark, and one of the reasons why, well, there still wasn't a defensive player that snuck into that top 9.
Well, in previous iterations, I did have a defensive player in there, but that was Caleb Farley, who, unfortunately, with the injury stuff, we just don't know. He's an unknown at this point. Multiple back procedures, an ACL, and he's only played 2 years at the position, so plenty of question marks. Now, teams are going to be split on how they view Farley, and, one team might say, oh, if he gets past pick 20, we'll take the chance, where another team's going to say, he has to get past pick 60. It's just every team's going to look at that very differently. I put Caleb Farley at 29 as my fourth corner, as just kind of a placeholder right now as we get more information. But, I still, Farley, he's such a ridiculous talent, 6'2", 200 pounds. His arm length at the pro day, he wasn't able to work out, obviously, but his arm length, 33 3/4. I mean, that's almost an inch longer than Rashawn Slater. So just silly length. He's a legit 4'3" guy. So big Caleb Farley fan, but we have to move him down. So that leaves Patrick Surtain as the top defensive player, and then J.C. Horn not too far behind him in terms of the top corners. Micah Parsons, I still believe, is, with his talent, 4.36 speed, he still belongs in the top 15 as long as you're comfortable with the character concerns and, the person that he is. I have very few questions about the talent. So, Micah Parsons, he's in there in that mix. And then, Broadus was talking about the pass rushers earlier, and it's hard to love any of these guys, but Azeez Ojulari, to me, the top pass rusher. I have him at 16, Kwity Paye at 19, then Jalen Phillips at 25.
Man, I'm going to be dead wrong about Kwity Paye a bit. I really am, and I like your list, Dane. I really, really do. To me, I personally like Horn better than Surtain, but I can understand people falling in love. Surtain's a ready-made player. You watch him play at Alabama. You see quality play. You see some times, though, where there's some lapses, but you could say that about any of these corners. I just want the guy that's going to fight every single snap. And the thing with Horn, he's probably going to hold. He's probably going to get – but he was the one guy, when you watch the Florida tape, that they put him on Pitts, and he wasn't afraid of Pitts. I think Pitts is one of the best players in this draft. And there were some times where he was tight coverage, knocking the ball away. Pitts kind of turns around and looks at him like, where the hell did you come from, kind of a thing, and you don't always see that happen. Give me the guy that's really super competitive. I know you got him right there, but I could see the Cowboys at 10 saying, you know what, let's just take this guy, let's take this Alabama corner, we'll move on with our day, we'll figure about the offensive tackles at 44 or whatever else we need to get.
Did you guys see 4.40 for Horn and 4.41 for Surtain? Both those numbers surprised me.
No, I guess they both surprised me a little bit, but I think that's what we're going to get because it's pro days. I think literally every player and every time we get is hot. Every one of them. I think J.C. Horn, I'm going to call him a 4.45.
Our Missouri linebacker Bolton didn't run all that great for him.
Well, he ran 4.5. He ran what, 4.59?
Yeah, but he plays faster than that on tape. I know that.
So I'm gonna call him a 4.65. If you tell me 4.41 for Surtain, I'm gonna call it a 4.47. If you tell me 4.39 for Horn, I'm gonna call it a 4.45. Because like the guys who track the athleticism, like this is the most athletic draft class of all time. You know why? Because we're using handheld timers. We don't have a combine. Add time to every single time you see. All of them. Because at the combine, they'd be higher.
Dave,
and I'll tell you one thing.
Go for it, Brian.
Go ahead, Kyle. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, that's fine. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Dane, we've talked about pro days previously on this show, but is there any extra ounce of at least precaution of getting these times right? Like, I know we've talked about potential lasers at these pro days, but, I mean, how do we know which are not used by lasers and which are?
Yeah, most of these are hand times, but honestly, that's what teams use. They use, even at the combine, they'll use their hand times over the quote unquote official time. So, and you'll see the results, and one will be over the other. And then you talk to a scout, and well, that one was with the wind, and this one was against the wind. And there's so many factors here. A downhill track or indoor facility. I know, like the Illinois State pro day was outside in freezing temps with freezing rain, and it's all of these factors play into these numbers, and so the context is, it helps, but that's why I wait till I get the official times, and I'm just whatever the official times are, that's what NFL teams are using, so good enough for me.
I think we're all grateful that the scouts are actually on the road right now and doing timings. I mean, that's something. I'll tell you something that's been problematic for a lot of these scouts, other than the medical information, is the fact that these like individual workouts, the ability to go and work somebody out on your own with your own staff and your own environments and things like that. That's hurt a lot of these guys, because the pro days they have, that's the only evaluation they got. So, you have to go. Do you have to go retime a kid? Do you have to make sure you have a better vertical jumps, whatever? I mean, there's a lot of things going into this stuff, and the scouts, I feel like they're doing the best they can, but there are a lot of situations. Like, I know that track at Ohio State is downhill. I mean, it is a downhill facility. They run them at the top of the hill, run them downhill. When you see those times from Ohio State, you're like going, man, they're flying. Well, they're flying for a reason, because they're running downhill. And there's nothing you can do about that. That's the way the Woody Hayes Center is. But that's what you got to do. That's what scouts. That's where we're at right now with these scouts, working that with what they have.
And that's why this year it matters a little bit more. Our DB coach was at which pro day, and the offensive coordinator was where. I mean, that matters, because you can't bring these guys to the facility for a personal workout, for a facility visit. You can't do that. It's all about the pro days. So where the coaches go, where the offensive coordinators go, if you have a positional coach go to a specific pro day, that always matters, but even more so this year.
Okay, well then we need to get to the bottom of a mystery. What's McCarthy doing at Ohio State? Mike McCarthy's at Ohio State. I've seen pictures. We're going to have to figure out what player is Mike McCarthy interested in. Obviously,
Wade.
they have lots of them.
That's who it is.
Okay, yeah, if you need a fifth-round pick, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. That's what I saw the picture, and I'm like, who is he looking at Ohio State?
Tommy Togiai?
Yeah, I think it's probably Togiai.
There you go. Maybe the linebackers. Maybe a little Baron Browning. Justin Hilliard.
They've got some offensive linemen too there. I mean, that you have to probably get an ideal of. But yeah, I mean, to me, that's McCarthy's probably one of those things that he's just going out hitting the big schools. I don't know how much he's really picking all this stuff up. I mean,
good restaurants around there.
I'll tell you what, though, he did mention about him going to Kentucky. He did mention about going to Kentucky.
Boss man fat, let's go.
That's a cornerback right there. I think they're hunting cornerbacks. I think he's going to take a look. Him and Will McClay, I think, are going to take a look at all the cornerbacks in these top corners and see which one they need.
Well, in the conversations that I've had with some of the scouting department is that not only is it the numbers that are tougher to gain this year, it's how these players are off of the field. What is this person like? What is this prospect like? And I know Brian, Dane, Jeff, you guys have been around this long enough to say that's already probably the hardest part of the draft. It's not. You can always look at the numbers. You can always look at the tape. It's finding out what kind of person, what kind of player and mentality, leader these prospects ultimately are going to be whenever they get to the next level. And that's one of the parts of this draft that are almost completely taken out unless you go to these pro days or unless you saw them at the Senior Bowl.
Well, I got good news for you, Kyle. My guy Kelvin Joseph's easy to figure out. Ask the two coaching staffs that didn't like him, and you can check out the Boss Man Fat YouTube page, and you can hear his music, and it's good music, and he's a good corner. Let's go.
Okay.
It's, you have to wonder how the Isaiah Wilson situation from last year is going to affect teams this year. With not having a full idea of a player's character. Yeah. What red flags are going to be acceptable, which ones aren't. That Isaiah Wilson situation is going to stick with some teams when they're decision making this year.
It'll be interesting to look at, and if the Cowboys are looking at 10 offensive players on the board, who's going to look in the defensive side of things? That was going to be the topic we were trying to get to, but we ended up getting sidetracked a couple different times. We might have to save that for next week, Brian. That was a good idea that you came up with, but I think that's something that is going to continue to be a debate for the Cowboys moving into...
Eichenberg, the tackle, Notre Dame.
You do like Eichenberg
Caleb
a lot.
Farley,
if he
Richie
falls.
Grant, Nick Bolton.
Yeah, that's fair.
Joseph Ossai, Peyton Turner.
Okay, just keep naming them, Jeff, and we'll just ride off into the sunset with you just naming prospects.
Merrick, he shouldn't go in the first round. He should go around 44.
I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Don't do that. Chris Beam in the back for Jeff Cavanaugh, for Dane Brugler, for Brian Broaddus. I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long. We'll see you on Thursday, 10 a.m. Central Time on The Draft Show.
Eric Stokes, Aaron Robinson.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!